The Soviet Union was born from satire, and satire birthed it. Before the revolution, political humor in the Russian Empire belonged mostly to educated circles. Newspapers, caricatures, literary satire, intelligent humor for intelligent people. The Bolsheviks changed that. They simplified political language, simplified enemies, simplified jokes. Satire stopped being entertainment for the intellectuals. It became a weapon for the masses. The Bolsheviks didn't only promise a new future, they mocked the old one. And they didn't invent propaganda, they industrialized it. But industrial propaganda has no use for subtlety. The new government didn't need sophisticated satire, it needed understandable satire. Many pre-revolutionary satirists simply had no place in the new reality, even if they genuinely supported the revolution. To Stalin, a joke was never just a joke. The Bolsheviks themselves had risen to power by mocking authority, undermining legitimacy, and turning the old order into an object of mockery. Stalin understood this better than most revolutionaries because he had watched it happen in real time. He wasn't afraid of laughter itself. He was afraid of what laughter does to power. And so Soviet satire changed the game. Direct mockery became dangerous. Meaning went underground. Humor became coded, indirect, cautious. Soviet citizens learned to speak in implication. Half sentences, raised eyebrows, familiar references. A careless joke could become a 20-year sentence. The state treated satire seriously because the revolution itself had proven how dangerous ridicule could be. And under that pressure, Soviet satire became something unusual. It stopped attacking power directly. Instead, it learned to disguise itself. Writers, filmmakers, and playwrights began speaking through allegory, bureaucracy, absurdity, institutions, and even official enemies. Formally, these stories criticized someone else. In practice, everybody understood who the letter was sent to. Evgeny Schwartz understood the central rule of Soviet satire. If you can't speak directly, make the audience do the decoding themselves. His play, The Dragon, looked harmless enough. Officially, it was an anti-fascist fairy tale about Hitler. Unofficially, everybody understood. No publisher wanted responsibility for printing something potentially dangerous. Schwartz sent the play to several publishers at once. Each feared the others might approve it first, and later someone would ask why they refused. In the end, all of them agreed. By the 1950s, this atmosphere of fear and ambiguity had evolved into an entire folklore of political anecdotes. In Soviet jokes, everyone understood the hidden meaning instantly, while pretending not to. In the late 1940s, food shortages in the Soviet Union were still severe after the war. A man enters a Soviet restaurant and says to the waiter, "Bring me some meat, please." "We have no meat today," the waiter replies. "Then bring fish." "There is no fish either." "Very well. Then at least bring some porridge." "We have no porridge." The man loses his temper and says loudly, "That devil has brought the whole country to ruin." At once 2 officers seize him and take him to Stalin. "Comrade Stalin," they report, "this man has declared that the devil brought our country to ruin." Stalin looks at the man and asks coldly, "Tell me, comrade, whom did you mean by devil?" "Hitler." "Of course Hitler, Comrade Stalin." Stalin nods. "Very good. You are free to go." Then he turned slowly to the officers. And you, comrades, whom did you think he meant? After Stalin's death, Soviet humor changed once again. You were no longer likely to disappear into a labor camp for a single joke. The joke no longer had to survive the police or neighbors. It had to survive the censors. The state now allowed satire. Carefully measured satire. Bureaucrats could be mocked. Petty officials could be ridiculed. Everyday absurdity could become comedy. But the system itself remained untouchable. The censorship system didn't just restrict speech. It trained society to interpret implication with absurd precision. People stopped consuming language literally. They learned to detect tone, pause, emphasis, omission, strange wording, double meanings, what was avoided and what was accidentally included. Meaning migrated between the lines because direct language became unreliable. Decades of censorship produced an unusual side effect. Soviet citizens became experts at reading what was never explicitly said. They were trained to hear everything around the sentence except the sentence itself. By the Brezhnev era, people could openly joke about the leader of the country itself. Brezhnev became the main character of thousands of Soviet anecdotes and jokes. But this wasn't complete freedom of speech. It was the result of generations trained to speak carefully, indirectly, and with plausible deniability. People learned to criticize systems without naming them, to communicate meaning without stating it explicitly. One of the most famous anecdotes about Brezhnev went like this. Brezhnev visits Nixon in the White House. Everything is luxurious. Expensive food, crystal, gold decorations. Brezhnev asks, "Mr. President, how can you afford all this?" Nixon brings him to the window. "See that bridge?" "Yes." "The project cost $3 million. We built it for two," Brezhnev thoughtfully notes. A year later, Nixon visits Moscow. The Kremlin looks even more extravagant. Brezhnev brings Nixon to the window. "See that bridge? We allocated $5 million for it." Nixon looks outside. "But there is no bridge." Exactly. By the 1970s, jokes like this circulated across the entire country. Workers, students, engineers, soldiers, even party members repeated them openly. The atmosphere was undeniably softer than during Stalin's era. But softness didn't mean freedom. A careless phrase, public criticism, or politically inconvenient joke would still attract the attention of the state. The borders had widened, but they hadn't vanished. For decades, Soviet system educated millions of people on an unprecedented scale. Peasants became engineers. Workers became scientists. Children from illiterate families entered universities within a single generation. But Soviet life also demanded another skill: constant interpretation. People learned to monitor language, detect hidden meanings, avoid dangerous phrasing, recognize contradictions between propaganda and reality. The result was a society that became highly educated and deeply skeptical. Then came glasnost, Gorbachev's policy of political openness. And when glasnost finally relaxed censorship, the effect was explosive. The state itself began publishing information that Soviet citizens had spent decades learning to detect indirectly: repressions, corruption, lies, economic stagnation, institutional decay. The Soviet Union could survive fear. It could survive cynicism. It could even survive stagnation. What it struggled to survive was transparency. In conclusion, the Soviet Union taught millions of people how to read, analyze, question, and interpret the world. Eventually, those skills were turned back toward the system itself. Irony? Maybe. History? Definitely. At the beginning I said, the Soviet Union was born from satire, and in many ways satire helped destroy it. Now you know why. If this video receives sufficient ideological support, several million ideologically correct comments, and modest contribution to the anti-world revolution, roughly equivalent to what Germany once invested in Lenin, then, in the next episodes, we will discuss the people who mastered the Soviet art of saying everything without saying anything. The creators of the Soviet anecdotes, miniatures, and jokes. Winter is coming, but the anti-world revolution is much closer.